Boom, coming in hot, Chinch, on a Tuesday. How we doing, brother?
I'm doing good, dude. When we started prepping for this show, I hit the pec decks. I've been working out so hard because I'm like, I got with this guy that's coming on right now. I got to at least impress him a little bit. I know I'm a little guy, but I'm fired up. I got my Grateful Warrior shirt on.
Fancy. Dude, you are looking more jacked too, bro. Seriously, I know. Dude,
I'm trying.
Every time I used to walk on MLB Network, you walk up to, I'd say, Chinch, what are we doing in the show? It'd be like, bam, the gun show was in your chair.
You can try.
Coming back.
You can try to get by.
You get trapped.
You might get trapped. Wow. All right. So this is already a meathead show, but it's not going to be a meathead show. There's going to be some serious stuff going on, because who do we got on and we're fired up about it?
Dude, it's tough to introduce this guy. He's one of my best friends in the world. You know, if you look at what he's done professionally, it's pretty incredible. International strongman competitor, obviously one of the strongest human beings probably this earth has ever seen. But the strongest guy in my life that I've, and he's still getting after it in a big way. He owns Teleo Performance, which, for me, he trained me back in 2008 when I was my last year with the Red Sox. One of the best, performance coaches, I want to say strength coaches, probably, I think, in the country too. I'm not even biased. This is what he'd be like if I wasn't his, sounds like it might be his dad, but that's a whole nother story. That's a funny story. Olympic athlete, college athlete, breakthrough coach with me, and just one of the best dudes in my life. So let's bring in my man, John Dennis. What's up, JD? How we doing, brother?
Case, I am fired up. Just thanks for the intro. I'm ready to run through a wall.
All right, seriously, good. You better be.
You just know how to do it.
There you go.
You know what you're doing.
All right, I'm going to get out of the way, but I have to ask this one question because my entire college experience, me and my buddies used to obsessively watch the World's Strongest Man competitions when it was like Magnus Magnuson pulling the odd-shaped anchor. Oh, we would get so fired up. We were drinking a little wine and stuff back in the day in college. We always had one debate, and I need this answered, and then you guys get after it. When they do the kegs, when they pick up the kegs and throw them over their heads over a wall, are they full or are they empty, and how much do they weigh, and how difficult is that? That's my only question for this.
Chich, it is difficult because of the length of the kegs. It's the height of them, but they are not full. They weigh anywhere from 20 to 70 pounds, but they're throwing it over a 20-foot wall.
Yeah,
so
that's unbelievable.
There's a lot of technique and skill and strength involved in it, and there's a lot of them, so you kind of get tired.
Oh my God! All right, glad. Oh my God,
JD, I know there's certain events too that you guys do. Is that one of your events? I know, like, you have just stones, like your event, dude, that JD can grab like 1,000-pound stone and put it up on his thing. But like, was the keg tossed one of your good events?
I never got to do the keg toss. I've done like where they do sandbags and throw them over up to 50 pounds, but I've never got an opportunity to do the keg toss. It's actually a fairly newer event for height and things of that nature. I think it's off of the old camber toss from the Highland Games.
Oh, okay. Well, when you maybe you will do the keg toss one day, you're gonna let us know.
Yeah. All right.
Or maybe you could do the Chinch toss. Just grab Chinch and just friggin' zing them.
See how far you can throw me. It'd be pretty far. All right. I'm gonna get out of the way because you guys have a lot of great stuff to talk about. So get after it, and I'll catch up with you guys after.
All right, brother. We'll see you in a little bit, Chinch. Thanks, brother. Love you, man. Dude, JD, I was thinking about, I was going through. It's funny. One thing I love about this show is that, like, you're doing research on your buddies. You feel like you know your buddies so well, then you start researching. Man, there's some, incredible stuff, and we'll get to all that. But I kind of want to, give our listeners, how we met. I just want to go. I want to go back to 2008. Off season 2007. I remember I wanted to get like more into the deadlifting, more into the Olympic lifting that I done a lot in college with Trey Teichelman. So Trey Teichelman, who was my strength coach in college, he's the guy I called. I'm like, all right, I'm going to give Trey a call and see if he could find somebody in Pittsburgh. I remember calling Trey Teichelman. He was down in Dallas, and I said, Trey, man, I was like, I want to get back to the Olympic lifting, the stuff that I did with you in college. I want to, work on some more power movements, and I don't want to just go to anybody. I only have a few months here. I want to make sure I get the best guy in Pittsburgh. And I remember Trey saying, hey, listen, let me do some research. I'll get back to you. So he did some research for a few days, gets back to me a few days later, and he says, the only guy that I would trust in the Pittsburgh area to do what you're doing and to want to, get more powerful and into Olympic lifting was this guy named John Dennis. And sure enough, I got your number, dude, called you up. We had that conversation, and next thing you know, you were training me And that's incredible, dude. That was 15 years ago. You trained me that off season, and it was incredible. And, you know, since then you've opened up your own place in Teleo Performance. You trained my whole family, both my sons, my daughter, my mom, my dad, pretty much trained everybody in the Pittsburgh area. But, dude, what do you remember back in that first conversation we had back in 2007?
Well, looking back at it, if somebody doesn't say there was some intervention here for us meeting, I mean, your eyes aren't open, right? So I get a call from a guy on a number I don't recognize. I don't even know what cell phone I had then. It might have been a landline. I don't even know how long ago that was. But this guy, Trey, calls me and interviews me for literally like 2 hours. I don't even know who this guy is. He just calls me. He wants to know my philosophy, my training. And what he did was he went on what's called the NSCA website. So the top strength and conditioning coaches in the country will have this NSCA certification. So he goes to this database, which is full of all these strength and conditioning coaches that have this certification. So then he has to find me. So he finds me, then he calls me. And then we get into our philosophies, our methodologies, things of that nature. I don't know what's going to happen after that phone call. I just end up having a phone call. Well, then a couple of days later, you call me and interview me for 2 hours. So it's like, and really our discussion became more about two guys talking about strength conditioning versus you interviewing. So then we meet up, right? Yeah. And then it's cool because we have so much in common. And the biggest thing, like that's back when Google was like, you just started Googling people. Social media was still into the MySpace era. But you looked at me and you go, dude, we got the same three things going on. If you ask for what I remember, and you're like, faith, family, and wrestling. Yeah. Like, this is my guy right here. Because I got made fun of for years with the wrestling thing. But I can tell you where we were at talking, and you just bring it up out of nowhere. You just say, hey, man, we got the same three things going on. I'm like, what's he talking about? I just asked him his medical history. And I do remember that when we did your medical history, the first thing, because you asked what I remembered, I was like, wait, what sport do you play? Oh, my gosh. It sounds like you've been hit by a train. Like all these things just kept, oh, yeah, I broke that. Oh, yeah, I broke that. I'm like, jeez.
Yeah,
this
dude.
Baseball thing's dangerous, man.
Bro, well, dude, I look back. I was just telling my daughters the other day about my injuries. I'm like, they're like, Dad, did you ever get injured? They're like, did I ever get injured? Hang on, girls. You got about 2 hours. I'm like, broke both feet, surgery in my right foot, 2 stress fractures, knee surgery, pelvic fracture, broke my back, orbital fracture, 2 shoulder surgeries, tore every hamstring, quad, and calf that you could actually tear, broke my thumb, tore all the cartilage in my wrist. I was going down the list of like 2 concussions. They're like, Dad, are you serious? I'm like, dead serious. This is what Major League Baseball
is all about. And think of a strength coach. You have to work around all that. And the guy goes, hey, I'm going to the Red Sox.
Right.
Oh, cool. I heard of those guys, right? And you play. Okay, so we got to make sure we don't injure you during training. You still get performance. You still get speed. You still get strength. You still get power. There's a lot of things we had to work around there that I think we got accomplished.
Oh, dude, I know. I'm so appreciative. And then our friendship has been, gets stronger and stronger every year, which has been probably the biggest blessing of the whole thing, which has been incredible. Brother, before we get into like the strongman stuff and all the stuff, all the incredible things that you've done, and obviously the incredible father you are, the incredible husband you are, and all that stuff, I want to go back to John Dennis' story because I think it's a pretty incredible story. Can you just, I that's one of the big reasons we do this podcast is that get into the story of each guy and find out where their passions are, what's their purpose in life, and why they do what they do, what's their why, and you have a pretty good one. So rewind it for us a little bit, brother, and give us your journey of how you've gotten to where you've gotten today.
What's funny is a lot of people they know me, but they just, like you've said this to me, hey, dude, why didn't I know that about you? I've never brought it up. So I guess, my story has to start at my school I went to called Scotland School. It has to start, right? And it has to start there as a place. So think of a ninth grader. We've all been in ninth grade for the most part. And I'm a ninth grader and I go to this school where everyone's from Philly. Right. And I'm from Pittsburgh.
Right.
And I think I know everything. I come to this school, I realize I know nothing. And it's where I grew up, man. It's where I learned a lot of life lessons. I still have people that I love to this day that I met. It was a special place. It taught me things like discipline. And actually was the first place for a kid who grew up without a father to say, you know what, it's time to be myself and be okay with it. No, I lost it along the way after Scotland because Scotland was a big facilitator in that.
Scotland's was a military school.
It was a prep school. So my mom, and a lot of people don't know this, she was a lieutenant colonel in the military.
Wow.
Which for the most part, that's rare.
Yeah.
That, a lieutenant colonel is a very high rank in the military, and she raises by herself, right? So not a single mother, a solo mother. Right. So there I'm trying to figure everything out. And Scotland was the place, it was the first time I got a chance to be myself and be accepted for that. Because if I tried to be somebody else, it didn't end pretty. All right. And I tried that, and I learned some hard lessons. But it's a school, unfortunately, that's been shut down, but it gave so many people hope. It really is the origin of my story. But I was in ninth grade. People talk about challenges changing schools and things. I didn't just change schools because growing up as a military child, I went all over the place. And it was able for me as a kid just trying to find himself. When I went all over the place, I was able to create the new character I wanted to be. Right. And a lot of people don't know that about me. I was able to become something. I didn't like who I became because I was just trying to fit in there. And then I would go to somewhere else and I got a new chance. Who am I going to be this time? Who does so-and-so want me to be? And that's the challenges with growing up without that father influence in our lives. We've talked about time and time again.
Yeah.
But Scotland was
let's stay there for a second, JD. Tell me about that. I mean, I know, obviously you're a big guy, your whole family, your brother, Pat, you guys are two of the biggest dudes that I know. But not growing up with a father figure. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like before you got to Scotland, what was that like?
Well, I tried to find my worth in everyone else. That's it. So I meet you. Oh, you like a guy who can goof around. So I'm going to goof around a lot. Right. Well, then inside I'm like, that's not who I am. I'm going to make a joke of myself. I'm going to try to act the fool so everyone can see me. And remember, you're going to a place and you everyone knows it. Like you create these relationships with people as you go through kindergarten, first, second grade. Well, I'm always the outsider coming in. Right. And then I'm moving and then I'm the outsider coming in again. And Scotland was the first place I stayed at for 4 years. I mean, I lived in Pittsburgh, Quincy, Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, back to Pittsburgh, Carnegie, Craft, and I was born in D.C. And so then I come to Scotland, where it's the first time that I stay at for 4 years. And guess what? A lot of those guys were just like me, not a lot of father figures. I mean, the stories I could tell you from that school. So they all dealt with the same things. They were able to teach me because they were at Scotland since kindergarten first, and they accepted me as an outsider for who I was. When I tried to be somebody I wasn't, that's when it got dicey. I mean, real dicey. Because it was a real school. It was a real school, man. It was real. It was, you said what you said. You walk the walk, you talk the talk. And, fortunately for me, sports and that played a huge role. But growing up, like Chin just got on, said I was a big guy. You said, I hated what I looked like growing up. Hated it. Yeah. Hated it, man. That was one thing that I can remember being in a pool and, not wanting people to see me with my shirt off. And it's just, not having that figure to say, dude, you're good. You're enough. Think of the conversations that we have with our fathers. I think about the ones I have with my kids. I didn't have one of them. That life lesson, that growth, that, hey man, okay, let's go do this together. Let's get, man, you're perfect the way you are. All those things, I didn't have those. So it was very challenging, but Scotland provided a place for me that allowed me to grow for a moment as John Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about it before too. At Scotland, it was probably one of the first places there was a lot of discipline too, right? I mean, as far as, the daily routines, you and I always talk about having a protocol, having a process. Why? Because it gives me confidence. I know I can accomplish this, this, and this, and this today. I can always lean on that. I'm not ever waking up and reacting to my day. I'm creating my day. Do you feel like at Scotland, that was the first time you started to really learn discipline and structure and protocol?
Case, I look back at Scotland now as a 43-year-old and say, in order for me to grow as a man and as a young man at that stage, I needed that. And that's when we talk about physiology, driving psychology. I woke up in the morning in ninth grade. I made hospital corners in my bed. I cleaned the showers. I cleaned the toilets. This is all before I had breakfast. I then ate breakfast. I was eating what I was given. I then did the dishes. This is all before I went off to school. And then I went to school, right? And I wore a uniform to school. So I had they talk about happiness is minimalism. Like I had very little, I just wore an outfit to school.
Right.
And it had to look a certain way. It had to be worn a certain way. I treated people, we weren't able to walk in the grass at Scotland. So still to this day, I'm walking and I'm like, whoa, whoa. But it was just a respect thing because people worked hard on that grass and the sidewalks were made for walking. Then you had more details. We'd raise the flag in the morning, the taps, and you stand at attention. We did JROTC. Look at this as a kid. When I relate growing up and being accepted, my psychology changed because that was ninth grade, Case.
Right.
Going to 10th, 11th, 12th, then we get into sports, we get into things of that nature. But it was discipline, and it's weird. I felt when I was off at times, this is when I came home for the break. That you guys, in school, you're coming home every day, all those things. I did. I went home to my cottage where we had dinner as a group. We then cleaned the dishes. We had a certain amount of time to watch TV. You had a certain amount of time to do homework. Then you went to bed. You went to bed at a certain time. You woke up at a certain time. All this stuff we're learning about today. And I can tell you from personal experience, and the results weren't random. You can look at Scotland and look at whether it be academics, whether it be sporting. They were at the top of the list, man, for a single A school. Think about this, a single A school where most of the kids, I'd say most of the kids I look back on now and I share my story with and I thank them for how they welcome me. Dude, I had the same thing going on. I didn't have a father.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know guys who went home to school after graduating Scotland and their parents were gone. And I don't mean like they moved, like gone. Like they took a Greyhound bus and they were in Philly, like, now what?
Wow.
That's graduated 29 kids. So to do what they did with this, you have to look at this discipline and protocol and organization as something that not only is applicable then as a child and a young adult, but applicable in adulthood as well.
Yeah. We always talk about in Breakthrough Pro in our program about the bright lines, having a AM, PM bookend or having bright lines for boundaries, of how you do things. And it sounds like there was a lot of bright lines,
a lot of bright lines. Yeah.
Like your bed better be pretty good. That shower better be spotless. You know what I mean?
Yes. And and then you got into leadership roles. You got into leadership. As I got older, I became an RA. So you're checking other people's. So now you're learning how to be a leader and navigating all that. And then you became a leader of floor. And then I became the leader of the whole, basically, Januzzi Hall, which was where all the older kids. I was one of the two leaders there, which came, again, as you gain responsibility, what did you gain in Scotland? You gain rewards. So, and that's just like life. As we gain responsibilities and we show we were good at those, we were able to then gain rewards and you move forward. Some people look at that as, oh, that's just too much. It's too much. Well, then you never get to see the reward of that work.
Right.
And Scotland, I had my own room, had my own shower at a point, had my own floor. My room, I was now the one who was looking over people doing their chores, if you will, versus being the one who had to do the chores. But at a point, I had to do the chores very well to get to the point where I was at.
Yeah. Right. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. So you played football at Scotland.
Yes.
Obviously, and I think that was a big part of you kind of fitting in there with, making some friends. So take us there. Take us what football meant to you at Scotland. And also you went on to play at Westchester, played college football. Yeah. And then, obviously a little bit of pro tryouts and stuff like that. Take us to what football, at that time of your life, meant to you becoming a man.
Yeah, football, first of all, let me start with, you might appreciate this case. I was a pretty good baseball player. And I say that with all like, hey, let me just make Case laugh. But I played baseball my whole life. And let me tell you.
No wonder it didn't work out. I've seen your swing, bro. No wonder it didn't work out.
I didn't have a shot. Didn't have a clue. When I see what's being done and I'll see you like in the cages coaching Jake, like if I didn't play a good baseball game, I was like, Mom, we're going to Noble Manor bowling lanes. I'm going to the cages. What'd you do? I don't know. I just hit the baseball. I don't know how I looked at it. It just came out of a cage. And so, but I didn't play football till ninth grade. Scotland only had 3 sports: football, basketball, and track. All right. I played a little bit of basketball in some of the schools I was at. Did not play. My experience with Craft and Little Cougars football was absolutely horrendous. I never made weight. So you talk about a kid who doesn't like his body. Imagine how confident you become running around the football field before the game in a trash bag and eating Jello and salads for a week. That really picks you up.
Wow.
And then not making weight. So my first experience is I make weight in a football game, and most people, it's just a funny story. And I finally make weight, right? I'm on the Crafton Little Cougars and I make weight. Everyone's eating Wendy's. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Luckily, they've changed it. But I'm eating, I'm nauseous. I'm a center now, which I have no clue what to do. I snap the ball,
Oh my God.
right? A guy runs right by me, like, oh, geez, I should have done something there. He nails the quarterback. The quarterback throws the ball in the air. I catch the ball. I turn around, and I get nailed by like 8 guys. I'm like, this sport is absolutely terrible.
Right.
It's awful. But I had no choice. So in ninth grade, I'm like, I'll play football. And I played football. It's just a rude awakening. I got rocked. So let me give you an idea. Scotland had guys in the NFL. They had won 1 state title by the time I got there. They're always ranked number 1 in the state. This is a good football program. And it's why? Because it's just a school of athletes. I mean, the track team won the state title all 4 years I was there. The basketball team won the state title 2 times. And these athletes just played each sport. So I'm just running in circles, man. I'm slow. I'm weak. I'm getting nailed. And it's like sink or swim, right? I got there and I was like, man, I'm going to keep playing. I tried to play basketball and I was learning, but I was willing to learn at that point because it was okay. They were like, JD, it's cool. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Here, let me teach you how to dribble. Let me teach you how to play offensive tackle. Let me teach you. Well, then sophomore year comes, and let me tell you, the biggest moment of my sophomore year we're in the district championships, which, it'd be like considerable to WPIAL championships here in Western
Right.
PA. I catch an onside kick. When I get the joy of the team coming around me, it was a big deal. I think the kicker lined up and goes, you ever see the movie where like, who do I kick the ball to? And they saw me like shaking. I was like, oh my gosh. Well, I caught it. And it was the team, and it was the first like family experience. The same guys from ninth grade who taught me were celebrating with me. And it was like, well, this is cool. Then my junior year, I grew a little bit and I was able to play. And I just talked to my buddy who's in Florida, and some of the I wanted to get faster. So what did I do? I didn't know the technique to run. Scotland had a weight room, which is probably the size of not much bigger than the room you're in or the room I'm in right now.
Right.
And so you got better. So I said, well, those guys are fast and they're sprinting after practice. Hey guys, can I sprint with you? That was just always in me. Like, okay. And they welcomed me. And I'm 43 now. The guy who did that is 44 years old. I just sent him a text message today to thank him for that.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting me and saying, hey, look, we're not going to tell you you're fast because you're not, but we will let you run with us. And we're not going to slow down. We're going to whoop your ass every day.
Right.
But you'll get faster. And it was that, then the process comes into play. And you start to look back on it now as somebody with a lot more wisdom. You say, man, that's why that worked. And then as a senior, I had a little growth spurt. So I think I was 235 and as a junior, 275 as a high school senior. And I was able to do some cool things and learn and play, get recruited by some colleges, and then take it to the next level.
Yeah, that was the water boy when Adam Sandler's like looking around.
I was the guy.
Sandler's like, oh.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I think he kicked it right in my stomach where I had no choice but to catch it. And then I caught it. And then like to get that celebratory moment with my teammates, because you're sitting as a bench warmer, man. And now you're special teams and you're getting on the field. And then as a senior to become a captain of this group that you looked up to, like, man, look at guys as a kid, and that guy goes to the NFL, that guy goes to West Virginia, that guy, look at this guy's going to college. I just want to be part of the group. And then to be a leader of that group. Yeah. As you got older, man, you start to look back on it now and say, man, this is why this worked. Yeah. This is why this worked.
What are some characteristics of leaders that you've been around? Like, what do you think a good leader looks like?
Humility and gratitude, right? Boom. I don't know. It makes you a great leader, makes you a great human being. I love that picture of what a leader looks like, where it's him reaching down and pulling people above. That's what a leader does. And that's what these guys did for me. I was also in JROTC where we had colonels. We had to they were humble, man. They didn't judge me. They had a great perspective on life. They were able to be empathetic. But, if I think of the top two, great leaders are truly, they possess gratitude. and gratitude for the people who are there with them. And it's really fast forward itself into my life is having to be a leader at Telio, and they're confident in those characteristics as well.
Yeah.
When the whole world's going this way and up and down, left, right, I got to remain humble and I got to remain grateful for what I have.
Yeah. I love that gratitude. I think the great thing about gratitude is gratitude. Gratitude is no matter what. I choose to look at a situation no matter what, whether there's adversity, whether there's uncertainty, whether there's pain, there's struggle, whatever. I look at gratitude and I say, I choose to look at it this way, no matter what. Sometimes the difference between gratitude and like being a thankful is a lot of times you get what you're looking for. Yeah. Sometimes with gratitude, being a leader, things don't go your way. But you're grateful no matter what. And that makes you a great leader so that you can lead men through the uncertainty and through the tough times of life. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Looking at it as a choice it puts the power in our court, right? So if I'm a leader and things don't go my way, I could say, okay, good. Now I have to figure out how to do this. Now I've added another tool to my toolbox. I was doing well this way. This comes in. So perfect example, Telio, you're leading, and then a pandemic hits and you're shut down for 3 months. Awesome. Businesses fail in the first 3 years. Small business, there's a comparison. Grateful for what I have. Let's change the mindset. And then what do? Well, I tell this story often. We served during the pandemic. We served. We were of service. We said, man, this is what we do, but let's just change how we do it. And we're able to serve. And the community brought together close to $5,000 that we gave to first line workers, which, by the way, the first line workers, you know what they did? They wanted to give it to somebody else.
Wow. Yeah.
So we gave it to a food bank, and now that was a choice case. And what did that choice do? We now have a relationship with a food bank that we've given, over $15,000 to.
Right.
And that's cash and not even weighing the food. My gosh, 3, 4, 5,000 pounds of food, all from a decision to serve during a pandemic where we had to pivot and say, well, we're not going to sit back as victims. We're not. Okay, what do? We serve. We serve people when Telio's open. Let's serve people when Telio's closed. Let's find a different way. So now we have something new in our toolbox.
I love that. Well, that service mentality is big. That's another characteristic of a good leader, service,
Absolutely.
So JD, after Scotland, you end up going to Westchester, you play some football there. Take us after that, take us through like how you got into the strength and conditioning world. How did you get into the strongman world? Like, how did that come about?
Well, I was in college and I needed to pick a major, right? I was undeclared. And I said, okay, I have a goal at this point to play pro football.
Right.
So I'm going to play pro football. And what's behind that goal it's a whole nother story, but at the point that was the goal. So I need to train my body as good as anybody. I trust myself. Right. We went through, by this point we had 2 or 3 strength coaches. I'm at a Division II school. So it's a little different than what's at the major schools. Right. So I'm going to get involved in what's called kinesiology. That's my major. I'm going to have a minor in nutrition. Bam. There we go.
Kinesiology, how the body moves, right?
Yes. And so Westchester actually, which again, you talk about hands in the story, Westchester had one of the top kinesiology programs in the East Coast.
Wow.
And so I went kinesiology fitness specialist, and I really enjoyed it, Case. I really enjoyed learning about the body and playing football as time went on. You know this. At the high school level, it's just you're with your buddies. It's fun. Right. You love it. Of course, I want to play pro. You get to college, like that's a little different.
It's more like a job.
This is a job, and then I had some great. Always having great people in my life. I think of Dr. Craig Stevens, who looked at me, and I'm a poor college senior, and he goes, "JD, what do you think about the Philadelphia Eagles internship?" I said, let me think about it, Dr. Stevens. He goes, what? I said, well, the Y's offering $10 an hour. And when you think about, and he goes, hey, look, get back to me. And so I talked to my mom, who seems at every point, and that's a whole nother story, went and pushed me in the right direction. She goes, Johnny, take the Eagles internship. So I got back to Dr. Stevens.
Yeah. A little better than working at the Y.
Yeah, but at the Y, I'm like, dude, $10 an hour? what? I can remember at this point, I'm getting by off of oodles and noodles and protein shakes when I'm not eating the calf. And so, and I'm trying to put size on. Remember, the goal is the NFL. And fortunately for me, I made that decision, which I met Mike Wolf. I got to see, and I was like, man, I'm falling in love with the strength and conditioning piece a little bit more than the playing. And that's where I got to see the relationships I create with players, relationships I create with people as a coach. And I'm talking like guys who are phenomenal athletes who talked to me on my level when I was just myself to them and treated them as human beings. And they began to treat me as human beings. I was like, this coach player relationship is pretty awesome.
Right.
And I really enjoyed. That's where I really started to enjoy that process. And again, to have a guy like Mike Wolf in my life, who was with Andy Reid forever, to really point me in the right direction as it related to, what this job really is. Because you can fall in love with the bright lights of the pro lifestyle, and I believe he guided me in a direction which has me at Telio to this day. So I'm grateful for Mike in that aspect. And then after college, I still chased the dream, but I wanted to use my degree.
Right.
So now I'm starting to coach athletes.
But didn't you play like a little arena football or?
Yeah. So I'm at Westchester. I try out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's kind of like the waterfall effect. So you try out for the Pittsburgh Steelers after Westchester. I'm going to play pro ball, but you just know something is a little different.
Right.
And then I go to try out for the Chicago Rush and the Philadelphia Soul.
What was different?
I felt like I was doing that for somebody else.
Mm.
That's just what I felt. Like this is what was expected of me. That was my character now. Because after I left Scotland, that was my bubble where I was safe, man.
Mm-hmm.
I could be me. Whatever I did. When I went on to college, it changed a little bit for me. I kind of lost what got me to where I was at in Scotland. And I began to the whole fit in thing. And but you started dealing with people saying, hey, why are you acting like that, man? You're supposed to act like this. You're supposed to act like this. And that's where I kind of lost myself again, if you will, because I lost that piece of me that was at Scotland. And so then
it is incredible, as we talk about a lot, like that act. We all build that act of whether it's to protect ourselves, to not be, I know at times, growing up too, I felt the same way. I was probably a little bit of a heavier kid, and I hated being, picked on like that sometimes. And I feel like I, at times, was overly nice to the kids that I knew would pick on me just to stay safe so that you didn't pick on me. So it's like you do create this act at times that, it's not really you, but it keeps you safe. And, I think as we get older, or even as we're at that time, we don't really have the tools to look at the act of when does it serve us? When doesn't it serve us? And I think that's, kind of deciphering, that whole thing.
Yeah, that was key. I didn't have the tools, Case. I'm honest with myself as a 43-year-old now. I'm looking back, I didn't. So that journey was what it was. I needed it. I ended up going and getting a contract with Laredo Law, which was their original team. I'm a long snapper at this point. I'm down in Texas. I had everything I needed. In Texas, I don't care what, you could be playing Pee Wee football. You're a stud. Right. Texas is different. I'm signing autographs. We're on radio shows. We're big time. And you're eating Subway every day. You're living in a hotel room, and you're making very little money. But the goal is what's next. And I knew then. I talked to a great coach down there. Again, another great person in my life. I made the roster, and I said to Coach Maynard, I said, Coach, I just got to be honest. I hate to take a roster spot. This character has gone too far as it is. That's the first time I stepped out and I said, you know what? And he goes, thank you. I appreciate that. And best luck to you in the future. He didn't judge me, didn't condemn me. I just said, Coach, and there was a moment. I'm in the back of a truck in a Ford Ranger, I think. And there's like 5 guys in Laredo, Texas, which just take a hairdryer and blow it in your face on high. That's what Laredo, Texas feels like. All right. So I'm in the back of the truck, and there's this 32-year-old guy in there who's been with the Atlanta Falcons, Canadian Football League, Arena, and now he's with the Laredo Law. And I look at him, I say, man, what? I'm always trying to learn. So what keeps you coming back? He goes, this is all I got. And I look at him and I go, in my head, this isn't all I got.
Right.
That's a moment there when I knew this isn't all I got. And I ended up leaving Laredo, Texas after that, and my football career was over. And then I began my coaching career, which I believe, if I look back on it, my coaching career has had a huge impact. And then obviously strongman, a lot larger impact than my football career ever did.
Oh, dude, geez, you impacted my kids and so many other, my whole family, but me. But it is incredible to see the impact you have as a coach. When you're able to be with kids all the time, or obviously men and women too. 3 days a week, you get to know each other at a pretty intimate level. I mean, I would say, is that a big part of it? It's not just about the weights. It's not just about getting stronger. I'm sure a lot of people are talking about their lives to you too.
Yeah, coaching, I say this often, it stopped being about sets and reps probably about 15 years ago.
Right.
It's more about the person. I've been called, somebody called me years ago. They said, man, you're more of my life coach. And
Right.
it just comes down to, I treat people as human beings. And the sets and reps have to be there. My foundation of education has to be there.
Right.
But now my goal is to be the best human being in front of that person possible. And
Right.
it's what they need at that moment. So, at Telio, we say we truly come along with you, and then we go with you on your fitness journey. That's why we say your search is over, because we're walking with you and where you're at.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you have to have the foundation of all those things, but now to care for the individual as a whole versus just body composition, weight loss.
Yeah.
That's to me where the true level of coaching is, and it always has been for a long time.
Yeah, dude, can we stay there for a second with Telio? Because I have a lot of pride in the name Telio, and that what you named your company. Can you tell us how that name came about?
Well, knowing your father, I don't even know if I would have asked, because I thought the stress was. But I said, Jim, your dad, Jim Casey, who has been a mentor of mine as well, for numerous levels and stages of my life. But I said to him, I said, Jim, I want a name that encompasses everything. He knows I'm a man of faith, but I want it to say it's over. Search for fitness is done. It's $1 billion industry.
Right.
And there's so many options. And I want a word that encompasses that it's over. So Jim, and your dad fashion, I'll keep saying Jim and your dad, he goes home and spends like 4 hours on the computer, sends me a list. I was like, oh my God.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
It's like this long of a list of things. And, I'm looking at all these things, and then Telio pops up. And I said, that's it right there. And Telio means it is finished. Tetelestai is the Greek word used in scripture where Jesus is on the cross and he echoes the words, it is finished. Wow. All right. Telio is the verb version of that.
Wow.
It's complete. It's finished. I can't tell you if Jimbo's watching this, thank you. I've told him a million times, thank you, that word has become consistent with what we envision our mission to be. And it's even gone a little bit further than what I ever thought possible, which is not a surprise because of what the word means and what it encompasses and surrounds. But when I tell the story of the name, you'd be amazed how many people look at me. And again, maybe they look, oh, well, we thought it was going to be like, and said, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know it was that depth. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's funny when we talk about the challenge, and we'll get into Breakthrough Pro about, staying the course, keeping your process. And when you make those decisions, you have confidence in those decisions. You'd be amazed how many people told me to change that name early on.
Wow.
Change it. And can you think about that? If I change that name, what it becomes?
Right.
There's no Telio. And now what it's become synonymous with. So yeah. We did not change that name, obviously. And it's come to mean what the mission started.
It's incredible when my dad started Casey Chemical back when I was in high school. And I remember him going over like, what's going to be the logo of Casey Chemical? What do we do that's different? You know what I mean? And I kind of look at the Telio of that of the logo. And this was my dad's logo. Can you see it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was chemicals coming in, and then my dad getting them, if they came in bad, like Tide would come in. This really happened. Tide came in with like, thousands and thousands of pounds of Tide that had turned orange. Well, they get it to my dad, so they called it the Surfactant Clearinghouse. He would come in and he would change it out of orange, get it back to white, and he would sell it. So it was Casey Chemical, the surfactant clearinghouse. And he was like, basically his purpose was making sure that stuff didn't just get thrown into the river, making sure that stuff, like, it got used again. You know what I mean? So I think it's just cool, man. I just so grateful for the relationship that you have with my dad. And I think my dad loves you like another son. I mean, he's always like, anyone that does anyone that you have a lot of, Division I athletes out there, a lot of people, some pro athletes, anytime anyone does well, he's like, must have been JD. Must have been JD's training. That's the reason why, So, dude, I want to stay on Teleo for a second here because, one of the biggest things that I started was the Miracle League of the South Hills. We always serve over 400 special needs kids. It's, talk about joy and gratitude and love of this place and for our kids. And, a few years back, I think it was almost 4 years ago now. You might correct me on this, 3 or 4 years ago. We started Muscles for Miracles. I'm wearing the shirt right here. Muscles for Miracles.
It looks great on you.
Obviously, I'm representing Teleo. If you don't think I'm a Teleo fan, Teleo performance, Teleo hat. You got some great stuff too. Shout out to Mark Gaither who gets all your stuff. But anyway, you came to me one day. You're like, Case, I'd love to have your kids at Teleo and we'll train them. And dude, I get choked up thinking about it because seeing our kids with cerebral palsy and Down syndrome and autism and all these different things that maybe the world thinks these kids weightlift, push a sled, all that stuff, swing the ropes. They couldn't do that. And you were like, yeah, they can. Get these kids here. And we do 6 weeks in the off season. We train basically you and your staff, your wonderful staff of Jeff and Josh, Dre and those guys, train our kids. It is one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen, dude. And it makes me love you even more. But what has Muscles for Miracles meant for you? And I also know you're doing Special Olympics too, but how has the special needs community really opened up your heart?
Well, it started with you, Case, with the Miracle League, and Tim Gebhardt and Miranda doing a great job of just saying, look, we just want our kids to play baseball. And that really, the Miracle League's mission of having the kids play baseball on the field while the parents are in their stands, just like every kid, that really moved me. So I said, I had an adapted class in college, and I said, we don't need to make all these modifications. We have a great training facility. Let's bring them here. We'll talk about speed as a force. So Tim says, can we do it? I say, yes, we can. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. We have the people, and we have more than enough volunteers. We don't need to adjust the equipment because I've seen how this works. Well, we do need to adjust the amount of people that give us support, meaning the volunteers. So we have that. When you talk about fulfilling a purpose, it does not get old when a parent takes their phone and videotapes their child and says, I never thought my kid could do that. I think that wasn't there 5 years ago. That was not there 5 years ago. It's here now. And now you got kids, they're doing things that I say sometimes science is out of the window. From what the Miracle League has done, and we've had other organizations call us. Like I said, look, I'm not, whatever people do out of their heart, that's fine. But for me, I believe if there's some cognitive things, we can help physiologically, and we've done that. And what we're seeing is when we help physiologically, cognitive benefits are coming.
Right.
Kids are remembering names. They're saying hi in the streets. They're recognizing faces that work with them at Teleo, whereas that never happened before. And so we're creating relationships that are so deep, and it's about humanity, Case, and saying there are no limits, and let's work. And we did it. And from there, literally from a video that was posted by Soda, so shout out to Soda, the Special Olympics calls us and says, we want that. And so now we're working with some of these athletes that are doing things that not only their parents have to catch up and try to do what they're doing. It's unbelievable,
dude. I stopped in the other day. These kids are deadlifting ridiculous weight. Like I couldn't do what they're doing, and I'm like, who'd have thought, that these kids, B and these other kids that are there, CJ, would be lifting the weight that they're lifting, dude. Like I couldn't lift that weight, but because that they, hey, listen, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You know, whether you
Let's
think
go.
you can or you can't, you're right. I think
You're
sometimes in the
right.
special needs community, we sit back and say they can't do that. Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not putting anybody in a box. I
Yeah.
know the pains of that. I know the problems with that. You know, you'll have to show me your limits before you tell me your limits.
Yeah.
And when you and we see that there are no limits with the American League,
Yeah.
zero. And it
Incredible.
is what you're seeing. It's all the things you guys are doing with the travel team and just hey, speed is let's go. Speed is a
Speed is
force.
a
Let's
force.
go.
Yeah. Like
Let's
we
go.
talk about. Yeah. Speed is a
Yes.
force. It is. It's the truth. Incredible, dude. I want to go. I want to go on to the final thing. I want to talk about a little bit about your strongman because it is incredible. You know, you talk about the one. Listen, I think about the baseball players. You know, 5% of the guys drafted ever make the big leagues. Of those 5%, 17% play 10 years or more. Of those 17%, 1% get to Cooperstown, right? And I think about it in strongman, like you guys, there's weightlifters, there's guys that are strong, and then there's another level of that. They're the one percenters. I feel like you guys are those one percenters of strength, and what that entails. Take us back, or just help us to understand the training that goes into a strongman competition, and maybe the mindset that you've had to develop over the years to make sure that that you excel at that level.
I competed for 20 years, Case, and I was fortunate to go to France, Hungary, Hawaii, all over the world and country doing it. And I've got to do some of those events internationally, with some speaking engagements. What drew me to the sport was the camaraderie of the athletes. And that's what drew me to the sport itself. And I struggled a lot early on because I was very results oriented, very results. So if I lost a competition, I had to go right back. They don't look at the competition as part of the process, and that made it challenging. I'd probably say, it wasn't until my later career where I really understood the process and the importance of the process in strongman. And I don't say this from a prideful standpoint, but I have not, once I turned 40, I didn't lose a competition. I have not lost one. And, here's a great story. When I was younger, it was all about me and what I wanted, what I want, because it became another mass. The camaraderie kept me going, and the building each other up kept me going. But the mass was like, I got to win.
Right.
What is so and so going to think? What are people going to think? Well, I put too much time into this. I didn't win. So the pressure was exhausting.
Right.
So I don't tell this stuff in breakthrough from a standpoint of on the outside looking in. I was on the inside. Right. And I was there when I was results oriented. I'm proud to say as I got older, I became very process oriented. And that obviously results aren't random. I became more successful. But here's a great story. I had a client come out, my first strongman competition after 4 years of being out. I'm in the open division as a 4-year-old, which most people realize there's the open division, which is the killers, and the masters. They're killers too, but they're older, right?
Right.
I entered into the open just
right.
to test the process out. I trained to get into that. Well, I finished a competition and I know that I've won, but they give me a third place trophy. So there's my lower self right away. Boom. But the client who came to watch me has 2 children with cerebral palsy.
Right.
And I'm watching them about to take the one child who's in a wheelchair down the stairs. And an inkling of me wanted to say, let me go talk to the guy about my score. Well, they needed help carrying their child down the stairs. I won that event. I won that competition. The second I said, let's put the old self away. It's not that important. I walk away. I carry the child down the stairs, Bradley with their mother, Kim, or Doug, and his father, Doug. And I go away. And I have the discussion later, and they eventually fix the score. But it was at that point I realized the process was more important. Who I am as a human being is more important than what place I score. And when I see that I made that decision at 40 years old, think about that. I'm 43 now. Right. That process is way more important. So that's strongman taught me as time went on that the process matters so much more. The process, and I did that all through my career, but I really emphasized it late, and that's where I got fulfillment in the competition, the sport itself, the appreciation, the everyday, the waking up early, training, the eating a certain way. I really gained such an appreciation for that every day, not just the event itself and what everyone thought of me.
Wow. That's what a life lesson that is, man. What's the greatest moment you've ever had in strongman when you look back?
Greatest moment, I got to say it ties to baseball, not surprising. So I'm in Philly with all the big names. Brian Shaw, Nick Best, all these guys are there.
Right.
Back in the day, Kevin Nee, and I'm there competing in Philly. And we're going, you would know this team, we're going to a baseball field to do the Stones for the last day.
Uh-huh.
And it's the Iron Pigs, I think, Phillies.
Yeah.
I know Ryan Howard played there. So the stadium's full.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
They finished the game.
Yeah. Is it Reading? Is it Reading?
It's out near that area because we're in Philly for day one. So we're right on the main strip for day one.
Yeah. Or Scranton, Scranton, Wilkesboro. It's probably Scranton.
It's somewhere wherever the Iron Pigs play because I made the most. But it was the crowd. It was the coaching, talking with people, the athletes, we're talking about fatherhood. But I'd say one of the bigger moments are there. So we load the Stones. The stadium's full. I don't know if it's single A, double A, triple A team. But I finished the Stone thing. I'm one of the few guys in my class to finish it. And I think we have to run to first, run to the pitcher's mound, run to home, and then run to third. So I'm on this baseball field doing Stones, and the crowd goes nuts. So I'm along the third baseline, and they're called the Iron Pigs. So I just start oinking. Oink, oink, oink. And it was just such a cool moment because, as strongman, you don't really get these crowds. So we took advantage of the crowd that was there, and they stayed, man. It was cool because all the fans stayed. So it was just think of a full baseball stadium watching guys do Stones, and it was really a cool moment. So I enjoyed that moment a lot.
What's the coolest place strongman has taken you?
Nice, France, 100%. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. I got to have the American flag on my shoulder. They would call us Team USA. Team USA. Here's Team USA. And it was just such a phenomenal experience to represent this country. And as sport, you think of a kid who didn't even like his body when he was younger, was scared to be around people. You've seen my 9th grade picture, so you know what it's all about. And to be representing this country in a sport that involves strength, determination, discipline, all those things, that was really
it's awesome, dude. It's awesome, dude. I could sit here all day with you. I want to dive in towards the end here about one of the things that we're doing, and it's so great for our listeners and anyone to really see who you are as a man and what you bring to the table. I obviously know you at a level that no one else probably knows you besides your family. Just the man that you are, the warrior that you are, how tough you are mentally and physically, and what you bring to the table. And all these, JD and I meet every Sunday morning for the last so many years, 7 to 9 every morning. We go through different things. And one of the programs that we decided to put together through our meetings together was this Breakthrough Pro program that we're coming up on Breakthrough Pro starting this Sunday, May 7th. But, I want to dive in for you, JD. I mean, what for you has been the benefit of Breakthrough Pro? What has been, what has this meant to you? And what do you think we bring? What are people going to get out of Breakthrough Pro if they come join us?
For me, one of the things I live by is we live from victory, not for victory. That everything we have is right here. It's all a choice, Case. It's all a choice. And we decide to make a choice every day. Now, there's things that we have to do, and I believe Breakthrough Pro has not only given me the tools, because we've been doing it for the past we've been doing Breakthrough Pro for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, right.
That's just the reality of it. But we're giving the people tools to live their life from victory. So whether they do it and they need reminded, or they do it and they never knew that they could, that they're not a victim of their circumstances, they're not a victim of their job, they're not a victim of how their thoughts are, they're not a victim of where they're at in life, but they can truly live their life from victory every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. I agree with that. I think there's such another level that all of us as human beings, becoming the best versions of ourselves. I think at times we're all, what's next? What do we do? And I know one thing with Breakthrough Pro, we've ironed out some incredible tools that I've helped, the tools that have helped you and me really, and then we said, this stuff really works. Why don't we put a program together? So we got this incredible program. This is our Breakthrough Pro 2 starts Sunday, May 7th. We also are for all our listeners, we're giving an 80% discount. I don't know if you can get that discount anywhere else in the world.
No, unheard of.
No, but 80% discount if you use what's the code we're using? The Mayor 21.
The Mayor 21. Yes.
All
caps, no
caps.
spaces.
All caps, the Mayor 21. We'll put the link. We'll have Chinch put the link in bio. The Mayor 21. If you want to join JD and I on May 7th for an 8-week program, we meet Sunday nights from 7 to 8. You can come in on Zoom. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, we're going to meet over at Teleo. But, the last time we did it, we had, a few in person and a lot on Zoom. So whoever you are, wherever you are in the country, come join JD and I. Sign up at breakthrough-pro.com and type in the code, the Mayor 21 for an 80% off discount to join us on Sunday night. And I promise you, if your life doesn't change after 8 weeks with JD and I, we'll give you your money back. So you get 100% discount if you don't like it.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. JD, brother, I love you tons, man. Have a great time out there.
Thank you.
Have a great time out there with Heather. I know you're down there enjoying yourselves, and you'll be back on Sunday. Tell her I said hello, and looking forward to Sunday night, brother, and getting after it again with whoever joins up and comes along for the ride with us.
Yeah, we're going to have some major breakthroughs starting May 7th.
No doubt. All right, brother. I'll talk to you.
I love you.
See you, buddy.